Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today. We are going to explore a genuinely surprising, honestly kind of mind-blowing, and rigorously science-backed premise. What if I told you that rolling some polyhedral dice and fighting totally fictional dragons could actually be a literal tool for emotional healing? And I don't mean as a metaphor, I don't mean just as a fun distraction for a couple of hours. I mean as an actual clinical mechanism to heal anxiety, build resilience, and foster incredible social connection. Well, that is exactly what the latest psychological research is revealing right now, and we are going to break down exactly how it all works.
Okay, let's dive into this. When most of us think of therapy, we immediately picture a very specific scene, right? A quiet room, a comfortable couch, maybe some soft lighting, and talking through our feelings. But researchers are now discovering that a noisy table, completely covered in maps, scattered with colorful dice, and filled with friends literally yelling about dragons, can actually function as an incredibly powerful therapeutic environment. We are looking at a total paradigm shift in how we approach psychological growth, moving from the quiet couch to the highly imaginative, deeply collaborative gaming table.
To make sure we cover all the evidence clearly, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll do a really quick primer on what Dungeons & Dragons actually is. Second, we'll unpack the core psychology behind the dice. Third, we'll look at real-world healing in action. And finally, we'll talk about picking up your own story. It's a structured, fully evidence-based look at this whole tabletop revolution.
All right, Section 1. What is D&D? A quick primer.
So, Dungeons & Dragons is fundamentally a tabletop role-playing game. And the absolutely most important thing to note here is that there are no screens, there are no controllers, it is purely powered by imagination, storytelling, and conversation. And the process is wonderfully simple. Step 1, you create an alter ego. Maybe you design a brave warrior, a cunning rogue, or, a really wise wizard. Step 2, you and your friends go on adventures together and make choices. And Step 3, you face the consequences of those choices, which are narrated by the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master is essentially just a player who acts as the god of the story. They create the world you're walking through, and everyone else is just living inside it. It's a beautifully simple concept, but as you'll see, it produces profound psychological effects.
Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology behind the dice.
We are going to systematically break down 5 distinct psychological pillars that make this game so incredibly therapeutic. We've got narrative therapy, safe exposure therapy, empathy and perspective taking, belonging and social connection, and finally, flow state. Let's look at each one of these individually so we can really understand how they transform the mind.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how directly D&D maps onto formal psychology. Psychologists use a clinical technique called narrative therapy. The fundamental idea here is that when you can tell a new, empowering story about yourself, you can actually heal the wounds from an old, damaging story. In D&D, you are quite literally creating a braver, stronger, or more confident alter ego. And here is the truly fascinating part. The feelings you experience while playing as that character, the triumph, the intense fear, the bravery, they are completely real feelings. Your brain doesn't actually distinguish between real-world bravery and the bravery you conjure up at the table. It processes these moments as actual lived experiences.
And that naturally leads us to our second pillar, safe exposure therapy. Honestly, if you deal with social anxiety, D&D might just be your ultimate cheat code. Exposure therapy works by having a patient gradually face their fears in a highly controlled, really safe environment. And D&D creates exactly that space. It acts as a rehearsal for real life with absolutely zero real-world consequences. Think about it. Need to practice setting boundaries? You can try a microstory where your rogue character practices saying no to a corrupt, demanding king. Need to practice public speaking or handling a confrontation? Your character does it first at the table. That allows your brain to practice the emotional mechanics of bravery without any of the real-world risk.
And hey, you don't just have to take my word for it. The data absolutely backs this up. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Creativity and Mental Health found that participants using role-playing games were significantly helped in processing difficult emotions through their characters. Furthermore, a 2019 UC Davis study demonstrated that tabletop role-playing gamers scored significantly higher on empathy and compassion tests than non-players. Why? Because every single session, you are literally living inside someone else's shoes, practicing perspective taking for hours at a time. This is peer-reviewed authority backing up the power of the dice.
Our fourth pillar tackles one of the biggest crises of our time. We are currently facing a massive, modern loneliness epidemic.
And the absolute best antidote to that isolation is shared purpose and deep social belonging. In D&D, groups of players are called parties, and let me tell you, these parties forge incredibly strong social bonds. You are problem-solving together, you are celebrating together, and crucially, you are failing together. Therapists refer to this as co-regulation. It's a deeply healing form of social bonding that actively settles our nervous systems through shared emotional connection.
And finally, our fifth flow state. The renowned psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi defined flow as a state where you are so utterly absorbed in an activity that stress literally just disappears. During D&D, massive slices of your prefrontal cortex are entirely occupied by decision-making, creativity, and storytelling. It requires so much mental engagement that the slice for anxiety is nearly invisible. There is quite literally no cognitive bandwidth left in your brain for anxiety spirals or rumination. D&D is just an absolute flow state machine.
All right, let's head into Section 3, Real-World Healing in Action.
I want to pose this question to you directly. Can slaying a fictional dragon actually change what you're capable of in real life? The clinical answer, amazingly, is yes. Because when you overcome an impossible obstacle in the game, something foundational shifts in your mind about your own psychological resilience. You achieve a fantasy mastery at the table that translates directly into real-world confidence.
Because of this, therapists aren't just theorizing anymore. They are seeing incredible results in real-world applications right now. In Seattle, a program called Game to Grow uses therapeutic D&D to help neurodiverse kids build crucial social skills, and they're seeing remarkable success. Across the country, veterans are engaging in tabletop role-playing groups to treat and process severe PTSD in a safe, cooperative setting. Autistic adults are using the structured rules of the game to practice social coaching and interaction. And therapists are running campaigns for teenagers to help them develop vital emotional literacy. They are actively using this game to treat trauma, anxiety, and depression.
And that brings us to Section 4, picking up your story.
So the crucial point is this. I am definitely not saying you should cancel your traditional therapy appointments and just go buy a bunch of dice instead. Please don't do that. But what this explainer proves is that the most powerful, evidence-backed healing tools are sometimes the ones we least expect. The profound reality here is that D&D builds empathy, it builds identity, it builds belonging, it builds resilience, and it accomplishes all of this in the most inherently human way possible, through communal storytelling.
I want to leave you with this final, really beautiful thought. Because at the end of the day, whether you are sitting on a therapist's couch, navigating the everyday struggles of your life, or sitting around a table, rolling dice with your friends, the bravest thing you can do is pick up the story and keep going. So, what about you? Knowing the science, knowing the psychology, and seeing the absolute power of narrative, would you ever sit down at the table and see what your mind is truly capable of? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.
Subscribe to Missing Layer right now, because once you understand how your mind actually works, you stop fighting yourself and start working with it. Please like and share this video, and I will see you in the next one.